Greetings. In this video, I'm going to go over how to use Cora version 3. So what is Cora? Cora is desktop software for Macs and PCs. It's an SEO factor measurement tool that measures over 520 on-page and off-page SEO factors. It measures the factors from the top 100 results for your search terms. It puts all the measurements, recommendations, and charts into an Excel spreadsheet. The value propositions for this software, the big ones, are that it differentiates your SEO from mainstream SEO with empirical data. So you use this tool to back your recommendations with measurements from the field. And most SEOs don't do that. They typically base their recommendations based on their past experiences alone. So this is a pretty big game changer. It also allows you to know exactly how your SEO tuning is deficient to higher ranking competitors. And that gives you a path to improving rankings pretty quickly and efficiently. It also more accurately It also can be used to more accurately cost out SEO work by knowing exactly how much tuning is required to be competitive for a term. So we're giving you the exact amounts. If the number one result on Google has 10 matches in heading tags and you only have 6, then our software is going to tell you, hey, you need 4 more to be competitive. So in that regard, it's going to tell you for each factor how much more you need, and that gives you a basis to really cost out the work accurately. And the final, high value proposition here is that this tool lets you know when to stop tuning certain factors so you don't overinvest. What often happens in SEO is people get an idea about the factors that matter and they tune them and tune them and tune them and tune them, but they're never measuring the competition. They never find that point of diminishing returns where, hey, we've been number one on this factor for this keyword forever. Maybe we should start tuning a different factor instead. So you have to measure to know when to stop. And knowing when to stop is really how you save your time and money and rank efficiently. So how it works. This is a screen capture of the software. You enter in your keywords, and it also works in other languages, and it works with other Google data centers. So if you want to use Google UK or Google Ireland or Google Japan, that's fine. And you can use Unicode. The one caveat here is that all the interface elements and all of the output, those are written in English. So as long as that's okay, you're welcome to use this in different languages. What you end up getting after you search, you'll see that we highlight all the words that Google puts in bold. Those are the relevant hits. Google is saying, look, we've made all the relevant hits bold so you can see how relevant our search results are for your search terms. So our software collects all those relevant hits for the top 100 results. We made them yellow in the software so that you could see them in the wild much more easily. And whenever we talk about matches in the software, we're talking about the collection of words that Google considers relevant hits. So it's not just your search terms. It may involve singular and plural form. It may involve different conjugations of words. It may involve synonyms. And it also might involve entity recognition. So even on this example for DUI lawyer Los Angeles, if you were to scroll down further on this page, you would see Google highlighting the names of DUI attorneys as relevant hits for the search term. So there's a very sophisticated system in the background that Google's using to determine what keywords are relevant to a search. And we are looking at that data and using it to bring you, better understanding and advantage in SEO. So the key feature in version 3 is the track domains feature. It's the last button on the toolbar. You can enter one domain name per line, and just domain names, not URLs. And when we find a result with a track domain name in the results, you will get your SEO roadmap populated, and you will see the deficit column populated, and your track domain factor measurements will be highlighted. This is a huge time saver over past versions where we would just give you all the raw data and you would have to process the spreadsheet to get it down to this view. That's all done automatically in version 3. It saves you about 20 minutes per keyword, the fact that we've automated all of this data processing. So it's a huge feature. I recommend everybody learn to use this feature. Now, if you're trying to compare a page that isn't in the top 100, use the comparable pages button. It'll force the URL to be the 100th result. That way you can get factor measurements for it and compare it to the top ranking pages. And if you want to put the keyword search into a localized context for a city that you're not currently in, use the near button, type in the city, and it'll localize the results. And then when you're all squared away with how you've got things set up, click the Get Data button. It takes 2 to 5 minutes to generate the report. There's a lot of variance in that time because it depends upon how fast your computer is, how fast your internet connection is, what features you have enabled in the software, and it also matters what keywords you're searching. I've seen keywords that pull up, medical white papers that are 25 megabytes a piece versus, payday loan sites that are all 1/4 of a megabyte a piece. The larger the results, obviously the more processing it would take. So the SEO roadmap. So if you have a track domain and we find it in the results, it'll be shown here. So we see our roadmap for our test site, and we see each factor that correlated strongly, and these are only the factors where we had deficits. And because there were deficits, it's telling us how many more we need to have to tie for first place in that factor. This is the roadmap of what you need to do, what you need to cost in order to be completely, perfectly tuned for your competition. This is the overview sheet. As you can see, it automatically highlighted the tracked domain, so we have that here. It hides all the other results that rank below us, and we're just comparing our track domain to the top ranking results in the page 1 average. The practical maximum is the maximum factor measurement for results 1, 2, and 3 in the page 1 average. So whichever one of those 4 things is higher becomes the practical maximum for the factor. The overall maximum is the maximum value across all 100 results, but we're just trying to rank well on page 1. And so we're looking to the websites that do the best job of that to figure out what we kind of need to do to be good enough. So most of the time, you want the practical maximum. And the deficit values are the same thing that's in the SEO tuning roadmap. So if we look at this first one, it says body tag matches and our deficit is 653. In the roadmap, body tag matches add 653 more. There's no magic here. We're just measuring, calculating the delta. These are facts on the ground. So If you're used to Cora, then you'll remember the view being this view. This is zoomed way out. This is the same spreadsheet, but it's all 100 results and all 520 factors. In the current version, we hide all the factors that aren't significant, and we hide all of the results that are below you. And we do all of that data processing so that it's much easier to consume. These are the factors that were statistically significant, the strongest correlations. They're the ones you have deficits in. And we've made the deficit values red, so wherever you see red, that's a deficit. A deficit factor. It's not the actual delta. So whichever factor measurements are red, those are the ones that are below the practical maximum. So if you want to get to all of the data, it's still in the spreadsheet. You just have to highlight all the rows and columns and right-click and say unhide, and then it'll expand all that data and you can see everything that there is. It's still in there. There's no loss of data in the new version. We also have charts. The charts are very valuable for understanding the correlations. So you can see why it's correlating, how it's trending, what values it's trending to. So it's a very important part of learning to understand the numbers. So these correlation coefficients, they represent the slope of the trend line, and for a normal factor where the more of it you have, the better you rank, has a negative slope. So you have a negative correlation coefficient. So it lets us eyeball the data to make sure that the math is doing the right thing, and it is. And people often ask me, the charts are cool, but how do you use them for SEO? Well, I like to use the same factor chart in 4 different locations. So if there's a plumber or an SEO or a dentist and they have 4 offices, you could pull the same factor for each of the 4 offices and look how the factors vary by location. It's a great tool because it lets you demonstrate why your rankings in Tacoma were much easier to get, and why you haven't quite got them in Linwood is because the degree of competitive tuning is much steeper. It's nearly twice in Linwood. There's a new zones report. This is a pivot of the measurement data. So the measurement data shows you the match counts by result number and factor, where this pivot is looking at the zones that the factors look at and the types of matches. So it's a different way of looking at the same measurement data to try and understand more about what you need to do. I would use this sheet if you are trying to set up guidelines, say, for how to craft content across a large site. Of course, you'd want to have a good amount of samples of relevant keywords for that site, but this would be the kind of data to look at. We also have LSI Correlations, and we let you tune how the LSI is pulled. So how many results should we look at for LSI keywords, and of those, how many pages need to have a keyword before we'll add it to the result mix. And we also calculate the correlations of having the LSI keyword on the page versus the rank position. We're the only tool on the market that does the LSI correlations, to my knowledge. And so these are the LSI keywords that appear to move the needle in terms of rankings. So we put all of those important ones up at the top. The results tab contains a snapshot of the top 100 results from the time your report was created. It's a very important snapshot, especially if you maintain an archive over time of your keywords, which I recommend. People ask me, what can we do with this? Well, if you look at that link text column in the middle there, you might notice a pattern with the relevant hits Google put in bold. And if we look at the top 20, you can see that pattern really easily. It's the leading match in the title tags. So when I look to crafting and sculpting title tags and meta descriptions and trying to really sculpt the SERP, this is a good resource for looking at what the competition is doing. Also, with Google algorithm updates, it's important to keep an archive over time, because if you look at a keyword file before and after the algorithm update, any of the changes in which factors are correlating shows you how to adapt to the algorithm update. I've been using this technique for years, and it takes a ton of the stress away about these algorithm updates, because algorithm update happens, first thing I ask, did my rankings change? If yes, then let's go see what factors are correlating strong for those search terms. And I can see that, these 3 correlations got much weaker. Their correlation coefficients got closer to 0. And these ones got stronger. Their correlation coefficients got further away from 0. And so it gives you a roadmap on how to adjust your methodology. We have video training on the website. It's free and publicly available. I recommend you use it to learn to get the most out of the software and to see what it's capable of. The features within the software, you can set the output directory with this button, the Google home page, a browser back button. This button will reset Cora to its initial state, like when you open it. So if you want to start clean, that's the easy way. The Get Data button to actually collect the measurements. Stop button if you want to abort it. Comparable page button if you want to add a URL into the result set that otherwise wouldn't be there. The Near button for localizing. Your settings button, and we'll go over the settings in a moment. The factors button is an advanced feature. If there are factors you will never ever care about and you want to save some time, you can disable them here and the software won't spend time measuring them. And then the track domains button, which is the real powerhouse of Cora version 3. The progress bar tells you how much work is left and what it's working on. And then the LED indicator, you want to see green. Green means your license is good, the network is accessible, and the software is ready for use. So in the settings, you can set the default Google, so you can make it one of the international Googles. The NCR at the end there is important. It means no country redirect, and that prevents Google from redirecting to the Google data center they think you should be using based on your IP. You might not want Google to do that, so you got to add NCR to turn that off. You can set the output directory. This is where you input your Cora serial number. If you want to permit Cora to be used with Ahrefs, you got to go through these buttons. The Ahrefs token is populated automatically. You don't fill that out. It's just there for reference, and it happens after your first successful run. So don't worry if it's empty and you've given permission. And you can specify which APIs to pull data from, and this can save your monthly budget so it goes further. Your LSI settings. The regex character limit is an advanced feature. It lets you trade accuracy for runtime. There is a point of diminishing returns, and the default is pretty optimally set for most people. But if you have trouble collecting data in some cases, contact me first, and if we need to, we can up that a bit. SEM Rush settings as well.